The soft wind moved through the tall silver trees of planet Ilera. The sky above was a deep purple, filled with slow-moving clouds that glowed softly. Birds with glass-like wings flew quietly, their songs echoing through the forest. A small clearing in the woods held one thing that did not belong, a tiny grave, covered with glowing blue flowers. Neva stood there, her head low. Her long, dark cloak moved gently in the wind. She was tall and thin, with light purple skin and large, golden eyes full of sadness. Her hand shook as she held a small necklace, a child's pendant shaped like a star. She knelt down by the grave and placed the pendant carefully on the dirt. This was hers, she whispered. My Scylla, my little one. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. It had been 3 months since the human attack. The United Earth Navy had come to Ilera looking for resources. Neva's village had refused to give up their sacred forest. The humans brought machines, weapons, and fire. Neva remembered the screams, the running, the terrible shaking of the earth. She remembered holding Scylla in her arms, her daughter, crying, too young to understand war. Then the roof fell in. When Neva woke up, she was buried under stone and ash. Her arm was broken. Her home was gone, her daughter was gone. They searched the ruins. They found only a small pendant near a collapsed building. No body, no sign. But the pendant had Scylla's scent. The elders said it was enough. They built the grave and Neva wept. Now months later, she still came to this place every day. She spoke to the grave, told it stories, sang lullabies from long ago. Her voice always broke at the end. Your wings were not ready, she said softly today. You were supposed to fly when you were older. Behind her, a soft chime rang. A seer from the village stood at the edge of the clearing. She wore a long robe and held a staff that glowed at the top. Neva, the seer said kindly. The council meets again, will you come? Neva shook her head. I have nothing left. The seer walked closer and placed a hand on Neva's shoulder. Love leaves a trace, she said, even beyond the veil. The child's spirit, it may not have passed on. Neva looked up confused. What do you mean? I have seen signs in the dreams, the seer said. Strange warmth, a broken thread that still pulls. The child may still be near. Neva stared at her. But we saw her grave. We saw her pendant, the seer corrected gently. But not her. Neva's heart began to beat faster. Do you think she... The seer closed her eyes. I do not know. But you are a mother. You would feel it, deep inside. Has the bond truly broken? Neva did not answer. Her hands shook harder now. Far away, deep under the surface of Ilera, in a dark human outpost, a small light blinked on a control panel. The air smelled like metal and old dust. Broken wires hung from the ceiling. The place had been abandoned after the battle. Only one room still worked, a sealed chamber powered by backup energy. Inside that room, a small glass pod stood in the center. It was covered in frost, glowing faintly. Inside the pod lay a young, alien child. She was curled up, her purple skin pale, her small hands clutching a blanket. Her eyelids fluttered. A weak beep came from the monitor above her head. Suddenly the pod hissed. The lid slowly opened. Warm air flowed out. The child opened her eyes. At first she blinked and looked around. Then she whimpered. A tall figure stepped. Out from the shadows it was a human. He wore old armor, scratched and dirty. His hair was brown and his face tired, but his eyes were kind. Hey, he said gently. You're awake. The child stared at him. Her lips trembled. Where's Mama? The man knelt beside her. He held a small stuffed creature in one hand, a toy found in the ruins long ago. She's not here, he said softly. But you're safe now, I promise. The child clutched the toy and began to cry. The man wrapped her in a blanket and held her close. I know, he whispered. I know. But I'll take care of you. Her name was Scylla. And the human's name was Commander Eli Cross. Eli had been a soldier in the UEN. He had orders to follow, missions to complete. But when the fighting began, something inside him changed. He saw the burning homes, the terrified faces, the cries of innocent families. And then he found the girl. She was trapped under rubble, barely breathing. Her pendant was glowing, a soft light in the ash. His orders were clear: leave all alien life. Do not interfere. But Eli could not leave her. He carried her out, hid her, treated her wounds with stolen medicine. And when his ship left, he stayed behind. He knew he could never go home again. For months, he kept her alive in this secret outpost. He read her stories, fed her with ration bars, and spoke to her gently each day. She began to trust him. She called him Starfather. Eli smiled every time, but now she was awake, and outside danger was coming. Back in the forest, Neva stood up from the grave. Her heart beat like a drum in her chest. She looked toward the mountains. The wind carried a strange sound, a faint humming like old machines starting up. The seer stepped back in surprise. That sound. It hasn't been heard in years. Neva closed her eyes, and for the first time in months she felt a flicker of something. Hope. The old human outpost was dark and quiet. Long wires hung like vines. The lights flickered now and then. Metal doors groaned when they moved. The air was cold and dry. Commander Eli Cross moved slowly through the narrow hallway. He carried a small tray of food. The smell was not very good, just warm ration cubes and water, but it was the best he could offer. In the medical room, Scylla sat on a soft blanket. She was still weak, but her eyes were brighter now. She clutched her small stuffed animal, a creature from her homeworld. Food time, Eli said with a small smile. Scylla looked at him, then nodded. She took the tray and began to eat slowly. Her eyes never left him. You're feeling better? Eli asked. She nodded again. Little bit. That's good. You're strong, you know. The child looked down. Where's Mama? Eli's smile faded. He sat beside her and took a deep breath. I don't know, he said honestly. She thinks you're gone. Scylla's eyes filled with tears. But I'm not. I know, Eli said softly. But it's not easy. People were scared. Things were loud and fast. A lot of things got broken. Scylla didn't say anything. Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. It was her star-shaped pendant. I saved this for you, he said. It helped me find you. Scylla took it in both hands and stared at it. Then she hugged it tight to her chest. Flashback, 3 months ago, the sky burned orange over Ilera. Firestorms moved through the forest. Human ships flew overhead. The trees shook. The air smelled like smoke and fear. Eli was one of the first soldiers on the ground. His job was to secure the area and scan for resources. But when he saw the village, when he saw the families running, the children crying, something inside him stopped working. Then he heard a sound. A child's voice crying for help. He ran toward the sound, away from his team. In the rubble of a fallen home, he found her, Scylla, covered in ash and cuts. She was barely breathing. He lifted the stones carefully. He wrapped her in his jacket. Her small fingers held the star pendant tight. His radio beeped. All soldiers report. Prepare for takeoff. He looked back at the village. It was falling apart, and the other soldiers didn't care. They had what they came for. He could not leave her, so he did not report. He turned off his radio. He ran into the trees, and he never looked back. Now, sitting beside her in the old outpost, Eli remembered that moment clearly. I broke every rule, he said quietly, but I don't regret it. Scylla looked at him. Why? Because no child should be left behind, he said. Not you. Not anyone. She didn't speak, but she moved closer to him. She leaned against his side and held his arm. You're not my mama, she whispered, but you're nice. Eli smiled again. I'll take that as a compliment. Later that night, while Sila slept, Eli sat in the control room. He checked the sensors. Something strange appeared on the screen. A UN scout drone flying nearby, he frowned. They're back, he whispered. This was bad. If the United Earth Navy found him, they would arrest him. They would take Sila away. They would say he had disobeyed orders. And worse, they might not care about what happened to her. Eli turned off all outside signals. He shut down the generator to hide the heat signature. But it might be too late. He walked back to Sila's room and looked at her. She was asleep, holding the star pendant and her toy. Her breathing was slow and peaceful. He knelt beside her and whispered, I won't let anyone take you, I promise. Meanwhile, in the forest above, Neva sat in her hut, staring at the stars. Her heart was restless. That day she had felt something, a small pull in her chest, like a string being tugged. It came from the mountains, from the north. She could not sleep. The seer's words echoed in her mind. The bond may still be alive. She stood up, took her cloak, and walked into the night. The village was quiet. Only the wind moved. She went to the grave and knelt beside it. I feel you, she whispered. I don't know how, I don't know why, but something tells me you're not gone. The moonlight shone on her face. Then she stood and began walking toward the mountains. She didn't tell anyone. She just followed the feeling. Back in the outpost, Sila woke up crying. Eli rushed to her side. What's wrong? He asked. She held her chest. It hurts. Where? Inside. Like Mama is far away, but calling. Eli looked at her, worried. Calling? Sila nodded. I think she's close. Somewhere. I heard her voice in my dream. Eli took her hand. Then maybe she's looking for you. Sila's eyes filled with hope. Really? Eli smiled, though his heart was heavy. Really? 2 days later, the warning alarm went off. The UN drone was back, this time closer. Eli watched it from the hill near the outpost. It flew in slow circles, scanning the ground. He had to move. He packed supplies quickly. He wrapped Sila in warm clothes and carried her in a blanket. They left through the back tunnel deep into the mountains. They walked for hours, careful and quiet. Sila rested against his shoulder. Are we going to find Mama? She asked. I hope so, Eli said. We'll head north, toward the highlands. Maybe that's where she is. Sila smiled. She sings to me in my dreams. Eli looked up at the stars. Then keep listening, little one. We'll follow the song. The mountain air was cool and fresh. Tall pine trees stood like silent guards on both sides of the narrow path. The ground was soft with fallen leaves, and the sound of a small stream nearby added calm to the quiet forest. Neva walked slowly, her heart heavy but full of hope. She carried a small satchel with food and water. She had left her village without telling anyone. The feeling in her chest was strong. Something pulled her forward, toward the mountains. She looked up at the stars, shining brightly above the dark sky. They were different from the glowing blue flowers of her home, but still beautiful. Her thoughts went to her daughter, Sila. She is alive, Neva whispered to the wind. I will find you. Far below, in the hidden mountain paths, Eli carried Sila carefully. She was growing stronger but still weak from the wounds and cold. Sila held her star pendant tightly, and sometimes she would hum a soft song, a lullaby that Eli did not understand, but it filled the air with a strange peace. We are getting close, Eli said softly. The mountains have many caves and old shelters. We can hide there. Sila looked up with bright eyes. Mama's voice is near. I can feel it. Eli smiled, though he was tired. Good. We will follow the voice. The next day, Neva met a stranger on the mountain trail. He was an Eliari, hunter named Loran. He had sharp eyes and a strong build. He wore a leather vest decorated with feathers and carried a bow on his back. Mother Neva, he said respectfully. Why do you walk the mountains alone at night? Neva looked at him. I feel my daughter's spirit. I believe she is still alive. I must find her. Loran frowned. Many believe she is gone. The war took her from us. But I feel her, Neva said firmly. And I must follow the feeling. Loran nodded slowly. Then I will help you. The mountains are dangerous, and many creatures roam at night. Together, they walked deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, Eli and Scylla found shelter in a small cave. Inside, they built a small fire. Scylla sat near the fire, her eyes closed. She sang softly, her voice clear and sweet. Eli watched her and felt a strange warmth in his heart. He had never known such love before. Suddenly Scylla opened her eyes. I saw Mama last night. Eli was surprised. What did she say? She told me to be brave, Scylla said, and to find her. Eli nodded. Then we will find her. I promise. Back in the village, the seer sat in her chamber, meditating. She held a small crystal in her hands. The crystal glowed with a soft, blue light. She closed her eyes and listened. She saw images, visions of a child lost and a human man protecting her. She saw the face of Neva, searching the mountains. The seer whispered, The bond remains. The child is not gone. The truth will come. One evening, as Neva and Loran made camp, they heard distant sounds, voices carried by the wind. Neva's heart beat fast. She stood and listened. Scylla, she called softly. There was no answer. Loran placed a hand on her shoulder. The voice is close, but we must be careful. Neva nodded. They continued their journey the next morning, moving toward the highlands. At the cave, Eli prepared to leave. We cannot stay here, he said. The scouts will find us. Scylla stood and wrapped her small arms around Eli's neck. I want to see Mama, she whispered. We will, little one, Eli said. We will. They packed their things and began climbing higher. On the mountain ridge, Neva paused. The wind carried a faint melody, a lullaby only a mother and child would know. Tears filled her eyes. She closed her eyes and sang softly. Suddenly, a small figure appeared in the distance. Scylla Neva's heart jumped. Scylla, she cried, running forward. Scylla stopped and looked at her. Her eyes were wide. Mother? She whispered. Neva knelt and opened her arms. Scylla ran to her, crying with joy. They held each other tightly. Eli came up the path, watching the reunion. His heart was full. He approached slowly. Neva looked up and saw him. Who are you? She asked, her voice strong but cautious. Eli bowed his head slightly. I am Eli Cross. I saved your daughter. Neva looked at Scylla, then back to Eli. Scylla smiled. He is my starfather. Neva's eyes softened. Thank you, she said quietly. But danger was not far away. The UEN scouts had tracked Eli's movement. They arrived on the mountain trail, their weapons ready. Eli stepped forward, shielding Scylla and Neva. We mean no harm, he said. The scouts did not lower their weapons. Neva stood beside Eli, holding Scylla's hand. We are not enemies, she said. One scout hesitated. We will explain everything, Eli promised. As the scouts lowered their weapons, Neva felt hope growing. Her daughter was alive. A human had saved her. Maybe peace was possible. She looked at Eli. Come, she said softly. We must return to the village. Together, they began the long walk home. The sun rose slowly over the forest of Alara. The silver leaves on the tall trees sparkled as the light touched them. Birds with glass-like wings flew between branches, singing their morning songs. Neva walked carefully down the mountain path, holding Scylla's small hand. Scylla smiled, her eyes bright and full of life. She looked around at the familiar shapes of trees and flowers, and sometimes hummed the lullaby she had sung in the cave. Beside them walked Eli Cross, the human who had saved Scylla's life. He carried a small bag with supplies and looked both tired and hopeful. His eyes studied the forest with respect and wonder. The three walked quietly, feeling the cool air and the peaceful sounds around them. When they reached the edge of the village, people began to come out from their homes. Some were curious, others cautious. The village elders gathered slowly, whispering to each other. Neva stopped and looked around. "This is where I belong," she said softly. "I want to take Scylla home." Lauren, the hunter who had helped Neva on the mountain, stepped forward. "The people will want to know the truth," he said. "You must be ready." Neva nodded. Eli stood beside her. "I will speak for Scylla," he said. "She's alive because I helped her." The elders came closer, their faces serious. They looked at Scylla, then at Eli. The oldest elder, a tall woman, with silver hair, spoke first. "Is this true?" she asked Neva. "Yes," Neva said. "My daughter is alive. I have found her." The elder turned to Eli. "And you, human, you brought her back?" Eli nodded. "I disobeyed orders because I could not leave a child behind. I only wanted to save her." There was silence. Then another elder, younger and strong, said, "Why should we trust you? Your people brought war to our home." Eli bowed, his head. "I understand your anger. I am sorry for the pain, but I am not all humans. I want peace." Scylla stepped forward, holding her mother's hand tightly. "I remember home," she said softly. "I want to live here with Mama." The villagers looked at her. Some smiled, some wiped tears. Neva's eyes shone with hope. "We must heal," she said. "Together." In the following days, the village slowly accepted Eli and Scylla. People came to see the child who had returned from death. They listened to Eli's stories and saw how he cared for Scylla. The village began to heal from the war's wounds. Neva and Eli worked side by side, planting new trees where fires had burned and rebuilding homes. Scylla played with other children, laughing and running in the forest. But peace was not easy. Some villagers still feared the humans. Rumors spread that the United Earth Navy would return with more soldiers. One evening, as the village gathered around a fire, an elder spoke. "Must prepare," he said. "The war is not over." Neva stood. "We cannot live in fear. We must trust those who want peace." Laura nodded. "And we must be ready to protect our home." Eli agreed. "I will help train the villagers. Together, we can defend this land." One morning, Neva and Eli climbed the hill overlooking the village. They looked at the silver trees and shining river. "We have a chance," Eli said, "to build something new." Neva smiled. "A new beginning." Scylla ran up to them, holding a small flower. "Look," she said. "This flower grows strong." Eli took the flower and looked at it. "Like hope," he said. Neva hugged her. "Daughter." "Yes, like hope." As the sun set, the village gathered in the clearing. They sang songs of peace and healing. Neva held Scylla close and looked at Eli. She knew the journey was not over, but now they were together, and that made all the difference. The morning sun painted the sky with warm colors, orange, pink, and soft purple. The village of Ilera woke slowly. Children ran to the river, birds sang, and the silver trees shimmered in the light. Scylla sat near the riverbank, watching the water flow. She held her star pendant and hummed her lullaby. Her mother, Neva, sat beside her, gently brushing leaves from Scylla's hair. Eli stood a few steps away, repairing a small tool. He looked at the peaceful scene and smiled. After so much struggle, they had found a moment of calm, but peace was still fragile. The threat of the United Earth Navy's return weighed on everyone's minds. Eli had spent many days training the villagers to protect their home. Archery, stealth, and teamwork became daily lessons. Neva helped by teaching the children songs of courage and hope. Scylla, now stronger and full of life, learned both. One afternoon, as Eli and Neva worked together planting new trees, the village elder approached. "We have news," he said. Serious. From the scouts, another added. The UN fleet is moving closer. A hush fell over the group. That night, the village gathered around the large fire. Eli stood before them, calm and determined. We cannot stop them alone, he said, but we can prepare. We can show them we are not enemies. Neva nodded. We must speak with them. Tell them Scylla lives. Tell them the war has hurt us all. The elder agreed. We will send a message. Scylla listened quietly, holding her mother's hand. She wished for the fighting to end. The next day, Eli and a small group set out to meet the approaching fleet. Neva stayed behind with the villagers and Scylla. As they climbed the hill, Eli looked out at the stars, remembering the day he found Scylla. He felt hope, not just for himself, but for two worlds to come together. When Eli reached the fleet, he was met with suspicion. Soldiers watched him closely. He asked to speak with the commander. The commander, a tall man with sharp eyes, listened as Eli told Scylla's story. The commander frowned. A human saved an alien child? Yes, Eli said. She is alive, and we want peace. The commander studied him. Very well, he said finally. We will send a message to your village. Back in Ilera, Neva and the villagers waited anxiously. Scylla sat quietly by the fire, watching the stars. Suddenly, a signal flashed from the hill. A small drone landed nearby. The message was clear. The fleet will hold peace talks. The village erupted in quiet joy. Neva hugged Scylla. The war may end, or... Days later, the peace talks began. Eli, Neva, the elders, and the commander met in a neutral place, a large clearing between the village and the landing site. Both sides listened carefully. The humans spoke of mistakes and hope for a new future. Eliari spoke of loss and the desire for safety. Slowly, trust grew. Scylla stood beside her mother, holding the star pendant. She looked at the humans and aliens together. This is home, she said softly. For all of us. The commander smiled. Maybe this is the start of something better. As the talks ended, the two sides agreed to work together. The humans would help rebuild the village. The Eliari would share their knowledge of the land, and most importantly, they promised to protect peace. Back in the village, life began to change. New. Homes were built. Fields grew green again. Children played together, laughing and learning. Scylla ran through the trees, her voice full of joy. One evening, Eli and Neva stood watching the stars. We have come far, Eli said. Neva smiled, because we never gave up. Scylla joined them, holding her mother's hand. Together, she said. Eli looked at the sky. A new future, he whispered. The tiny grave where Neva once wept remained, but it was no longer a place of sorrow. It was a place of memory and hope, because a child was alive, because a human had reached out, because peace was possible.